We've all watched the film, heard the dreamers, and pictured the grand moment when the world's most famous ship breaks the surface again. Spoiler, wrap a cable around the Titanic today, and you get a rusty snow shower long before she saw daylight. 12,500 feet down, pressure squashes a styrofoam cup to the size of a postage stamp, and the hull is basically held together by legend. Every engineer who's done the maths calls a full lift a structural execution. Let's tour the four most talked about salvage schemes, each one more doomed than the last. Back in the 70s, a Texan oil man figured 180 million ping pong balls, shot through the portholes, would float the liner like a cork. Physics disagrees. At nearly 6,000 psi, each plastic sphere would implode to marble size before it cleared the cargo hatch. Even if the balls survived, the interior decks are so corroded, you'd be pumping buoyancy into tissue paper bulkheads that fold if you sneeze. End product: a billion-dollar underwater ball pit and a ship that still won't budge. Next idea: bolt a monster electromagnet to a support ship. Flip the switch and tractor beam 52,000 tons of steel home. First snag: rust isn't ferromagnetic. You'd have to clamp onto inch-thick inner plating that's fractured every few meters. Grab too hard and you snap the strap, grab too gently and the wreck just shrugs. Second snag: power. You'd need a small city's electrical output pulsing through a coil the size of a football stadium, and the supply cable has to survive the same pressure that crumples nuclear subs. Con Edison politely declined. Hollywood loves this one: flood the cavity, freeze the ocean, tow the whole popsicle to Newfoundland. Reality checks: seawater freezes at 2 degrees Celsius, but the ambient down there is plus 4 degrees Celsius. You'd run refrigeration loops powered by a floating nuclear plant for almost a year, and the ice forms from the outside in, trapping your pipes inside an expanding iceberg heavier than the ship itself. The U.S. Navy priced the concept and concluded the only thing you'd raise is the national debt. Modern cranes can lift aircraft carriers, so why not sling a reinforced net beneath the hull and winch it up in 2 neat chunks? Because the Titanic isn't a single hull anymore. It's 2 shattered city blocks separated by a debris field the size of Central Park. The bow section alone is 45,000 tons of corroded steel laced with century-old silt. Hoist faster than 1 meter an hour and drag forces strip the plates like wet tissue. Hoist slower and the acids in the mud finish eating the metal before you reach halfway. Either way, the net becomes a cheese grater and the wreck becomes the priciest sediment cloud in history. Let's talk budget. A conservative estimate starts at $2 billion, twice the sticker price of a modern cruise ship before you even leave the dock. A deep-sea fleet charters for $500,000 a day. Add titanium chains forged for full ocean depth, swarms of autonomous robots, and a 300-person crew for the 12-month weather window. Insurance underwriters priced the risk at triple that of a North Sea oil rig. RMS Titanic Inc., the only company with salvage rights, announced in 2024 it's suspending expeditions indefinitely. Translation: the balance sheet already sank. Even if someone wrote a blank check tomorrow, 2 governments stand in the way. A 2020 US-UK accord treats the wreck as a maritime memorial. Look, film, but don't alter, touch, or disfigure. Break that rule and you're facing federal felony charges plus a UNESCO heritage lawsuit. Salvers whisper about loopholes on the high seas, but the moment you fasten a lift cable, you've created a new jurisdictional tether. And courts from here to Greenland will freeze your assets before the hook hits bottom. Remember, leather shoes still sit paired on the sediment. Quiet reminders that 1,500 people never made it home. Raise the hull and you raise every artifact into daylight where conservation labs can't possibly fund the freeze-dry, desalination, and stabilizing chemicals needed for every rivet and rib. Within months, the salt air would convert the remaining iron into expanding flakes that shatter personal effects. Archaeologists call that a second death. Engineers call it unacceptable. Families call it desecration. Here's the upside everyone forgets. The wreck has become an artificial reef. Deep-sea crabs, ghost white anemones, and iron-eating microbes thrive on every beam. Disturb that web and you wipe out a century of ecological succession just to park a rusting shell in a museum where humidity control can't match the steady 2-degree seabed. Oceanographers argue the wreck teaches us more about iron-eating bacteria than it ever will about Edwardian riveting. Leave the ship alone and science keeps a living laboratory. Lift it and you kill both history and habitat. Could we raise the Titanic with enough money, magnets, ping pong balls, or ice? Sure, if you also rewrite physics, finance, and basic respect. Every engineer who scoped the problem agrees. The instant you apply lift, the wreck dissolves into a metal cloud you could stir with a spoon. The mission isn't raising the Titanic. It's keeping her story intact while she quietly returns to the elements. Leave her where she rests, and the ocean itself becomes the world's most appropriate museum. What do you think? Should we let sleeping ships lie, or is there still value in dreaming up impossible rescues? Share your thoughts in the comments. We're listening. And if you're into deep dives, pun intended, on history, engineering, and the myths we build around them, subscribe to stay afloat with our latest stories.